start. It is now 100% confirmed that radiation levels are dangerously high on the West Coast. Multiple universities have picked up between 50 and 181 times safe levels of just one radioactive isotope of radioactive iodine. And it is confirmed that the feds are basically telling people not at universities and state institutions not to report it, and they're now not reporting it after they first put out numbers in the last week. And the feds are not releasing numbers, and they're claiming that in Canada and the U.S., most government radiation detectors have been, quote, switched off. And I have that in my stack of news here today. And there is no discussion or talk about testing fish from Japan or stopping imports of vegetables or fruits from Japan. India and others are banning all imports from Japan of food and produce. Toyota's put out advisories. When you buy a Toyota now, there may be radiation in the car. That's about the only company actually trying to warn people a little bit, or at least tell them up front there could be some radiation here to cover their hind ends. I think Toyota's got a great product. I'm not here bashing them because it's a foreign company. Japan's actually built more factories here than GM has in the last decade. But that's going on. I mean, here's some of the headlines on that front. And I've got all these guests coming up, but I could talk for 3 hours just on this, but it's such a big deal. And it illustrates how corrupt the government is. Japan's ocean radiation hits 7.5 million times legal limit. That's L.A. Times. Japanese government admits. CNN, radiation and water rushing into sea tests millions of times over limit. Japan radiation evacuees left in dark about life after shelters. Doctors don't want to treat them because they believe it's dangerous to even treat people that have been exposed to this much radiation. That's actually true. But, hey, you signed on to be a doctor, to be a nurse. So even if it's dangerous, you know, if somebody's got some communicable Ebola, you're supposed to treat them. So very shameful there. EPA to raise limits for radiation exposure while Canada turns off fallout detectors. Mike Adams has got a report up at Infowars.com on this, and he links to all the mainstream news where they just bury it in footnotes that they're raising the legal radiation exposure limit. That way they can say, well, this isn't bad. We've raised the limit. Kind of like back in 1991, they said to the troops, well, we told you don't use DU before, but now we're saying it's good for you. Also, government holding radiation data back. IAEA gets info, but public doesn't. So the UN gets it, the Japanese government's reporting, but we don't. And Japan says, look, dumping radioactive water into the ocean doesn't violate law, even if it's 7.5 million times safe levels. And it just continues on from there. And you better believe that we are not going to get any information out of the federal government on what's happening, and they are running around basically now since the weekend when Berkeley, with the state monitoring facilities there, reported 181 times safe radioactive isotope of iodine 131 in the water, that now they've suddenly stopped releasing information. So that's going on that front. The government here in the United States, that is the government that's run by foreign banks, the occupational government, and that's what it is. That isn't radio rhetoric, okay? We are captured. We have been signed on to the bank's debt. We are debt slaves until we stand up and say we're not slaves. Berkeley, with the state monitoring facilities there, reported 181 times safe radioactive isotope of iodine with strontium by 90 times, 3,000 to 100,000 fold for iodine 131, 25 2012 shirts that are quite handsome.